So in terms of the interview, do you want to? I'm curious because I've been around the spiritual block for like 25 years. I've tried
Yeah.
all the modalities. I've had lots of awakenings. I've had lots of big reveals and ahas and
Yeah.
big shifts and what have you. But the kind of Kundalini crisis that I've read about, that we've talked about,
Yeah.
is not something I know from personal experience. And so,
Great. Well,
you,
that's a good place, I think, to start. So I'm super happy to have you here to introduce to our community because you have some information that, for me, the study of which has been extraordinarily helpful in terms of my Kundalini process. And I think it could be this true of anyone going through a spiritual emergency or emergence, but in particular with Kundalini, because what the Kundalini does is it brings up all of your parts for you to see all at once. So looking at it through the model of IFS, or internal family systems, is really interesting because it gives us a way to work with that. And then in addition to that, I think a lot of people's Kundalini process is triggered when, and this language will make sense to people once you get into explaining it, but what I'm learning is that a lot of people's don't realize how much they're managing their life, and that once those managers become exhausted, all hell breaks loose. And that can be the moment where energetically there's an opening, and that's when all the voices start and the fragmentation can happen. So there's a couple of different reasons why I think this is really important information. And so does that kind of set it up a little bit, you think?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in IFS, one of the fundamental understandings is that all of our defensive systems, which we have two, we have a preemptive defensive system, we have a reactive defensive system as well that comes out when we're triggered.
Yep.
That these are parts of us that were forced into roles and forced into certain behaviors or activity that really was born of need, not born of want, right? And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. We have these manager parts that are the preemptive defensive system, that are the glue that hold us together and helps us get through the day and not forget all the things that we need to remember and to fit in socially and what have you.
Yep.
And they're a really important part of our system. But if we're not aware of it, if we haven't given those parts of us a chance to evolve or to make new choices, if we haven't gotten to know those parts of us, befriend those parts of us, it's exhausting for those parts of our psyche. Please.
Yeah, and I've met a bunch of people who are in a process like this, where it's like the first, pre-Kundalini or pre-spiritual emergence part of their life was like spent very successful, very like kind of on, very the way I think a lot of people go around defining success is you've got it all together. And really another way of saying that is like everything's being managed really carefully. So I want to give you a chance to kind of like rewind and get into it, because I think I just kind of jumped right in, but
this was great.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Describing, right, which is following the prescription of the American dream, is actually inhuman. It actually involves really being a contortionist at the mental emotional level. There's a lot of suppression, a lot of repression, a lot of remolding yourself, a lot of not allowing what in psychoanalysis they would call the spontaneous gesture, to allow the childlike wonder in you to be manifest in an uninhibited way. That's all got to be controlled, and that's tiring. The way I think about it is, let's say you have a cork that you need to keep underwater 24/7, right? That cork is porous, and so it's going to keep popping back up. And so what it takes for you to keep that cork submerged is your hand to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then imagine you have 5 corks.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this? Yeah.
100, right? Because that's how alive we are inside. And that's how much suppression goes into corporate existences, or just existences that are born of needing to suppress a great deal of trauma as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of you're like this all the time, and it's like that whack-a-mole game where they're just still popping up. You can't help but like let some pop up sometimes.
Yeah, and that's such a good, the whack-a-mole is such a good analogy, because your arms are going to get tired. That's the moment, I think, of trauma, like the whole trauma and awakening, how they go hand in hand. I think that's the moment where your arms are just really tired from holding down all those corks, that it's like there's a letting go that's forced, where the energy then comes through. And in addition, so there's the opening, and then you get to see all those corks. You're like seeing them in your face all at once. So it's like, it's kind of the perfect like system to describe, to talk about, to give this a framework, really to give like what's happening a framework to work with.
Yeah, because this is